In recent years, a number of organizations have started to focus more on mental health and mental health resources for people living in rural communities. Here's Russell Nemitz with more on this important topic.
Well, unfortunately, there's a silent epidemic underway in rural America. But thankfully, this silent epidemic was addressed by a New York dairy farmer during Cattlemen's College here at the Cattle Industry Convention in New Orleans. With us is Jeff Winton with Rural Minds, again, a New York dairy farmer. And it's a tough topic to talk about a lot of times in rural America, Jeff, but mental illness is a real issue and comes in many forms.
Yes, it certainly is. And what we attempt to tell people, including the audience today, is that mental illness is an illness, very much like cancer and cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And so we need to start normalizing conversations. Even though it is difficult, it should be looked upon as a disease like all the other illnesses that we do feel comfortable talking about.
Well, you told this audience, as difficult of an issue that it is to understand, there are lots of warning signs out there that we all need to pay attention to.
Yeah, some of the warning signs, especially on farms, is if a farmer or rancher decides to sell his cattle or equipment very abruptly. That's normally a warning sign that something's happening. If a farm that's normally very meticulously kept and maintained all of a sudden starts to look like it's in disrepair, that can be a warning sign. If a person who is normally very outgoing and exuberant is all of a sudden withdrawn and becomes very quiet and keeps to themselves, that many times can be a warning sign that they're dealing with a mental illness as well.
With that said, Jeff, how do we advance mental health and start addressing mental illness in all of its different forms? And in many cases, it always isn't just suicide. I mean, there's different forms of mental illness. So how do we advance overall mental health, especially in rural America?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the key thing we tell people is to make certain that stories that have impacted individuals get told. I told the audience today about the death of my nephew who died by suicide when he was 28 years old, and a dairy farmer. And by my family being open and talking about that, it allowed and gave permission to many other farm families in our area of upstate New York to start being more open and transparent about what their families had been through. Every person has a story to tell. Everyone knows someone that lives with and is on a journey of mental illness. But until such time that we become comfortable telling those stories and sharing those, it's going to be very difficult to get beyond this emergency situation we find ourselves in rural America.
Well, it truly is a silent and real epidemic, Jeff. And let's just wrap up talking about it's real. It's out there. It's affecting more people than we probably even can imagine. But bottom line, help is available.
There is plenty of help available. And that's one of the things that we are attempting to do through Rural Minds. It's on our website. We have an aggregation of all of the resources at ruralminds.org where people can go and find information that exists, training courses that exist. And people have been working in this area for many, many years, but it just hasn't been necessarily geared towards rural audiences until we launched our organization. So our goal is not to reinvent the wheel and create material that already exists, but most importantly, we're trying to get it in the hands of the people that we serve, that we represent in the 60 million people that live in small towns across this country.
Well, we very much appreciate you being one of this year's speakers here at Cattlemen's College during the Cattle Industry Convention here in New Orleans. And please keep up the good work out there in helping all of us realize mental illness is a real issue, but more importantly, mental health is available.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Again, we've been talking with Jeff Winton with Rural Minds. Again, his main job is actually a New York dairy farmer, but we can't thank him enough for being one of this year's presenters here at the Cattle Industry Convention. And as I've mentioned, folks, I mean, please, if you or someone you know is struggling, just ask for help, because your mental health and your life matters. Plenty of resources out there, as Jeff mentioned, his website, ruralminds.org, and the suicide and crisis hotline is 988.